That's a really special thing to be able to just like let go of that and be like, you know what, what's meant for me is meant for me, period. And he just felt like really called to go see a psychic. The first thing she said to him was, you're having a baby and it's a boy. Not trying it and never knowing if it could be a thing was way worse than the idea of trying it and possibly failing. Hello, you guys. Welcome back to Heart to Heart. I am so excited to be sitting down again. It still feels very weird and like not normal. I'm sure I'll get used to it as time goes on. But so yeah, we're just on my couch. It is January, which means Christmas is over, aka the tree that was up in the last episode is down. I have my daughter in the swing and she just let the biggest fart rip. So sorry, I just got a little sidetracked. After Christmas, I'm done. Get every single thing that lights up that's green, besides my plants, out of this house. Like, I'm done. I don't want to see it anymore. It's like, I don't know why it's just so overwhelming. You're like, okay, time to move on. Like, Christmas is over. So happy to be putting that stuff away. And also, obviously, it's just a new beginning. And so I think you're ready to just like get back into routine. I am, at least after the holidays. Yeah, like sick of just feeling like I don't have a routine and just ready to start focusing on the things that I want to focus on in 2025. I have a poppy that I'm going to pop, and I would love it for you to grab a drink and hang out with me for however long this episode's going to be. I feel like the last episode I was very like serious, which you guys are probably going to get to see like a bunch of different sides of me. But I just want everyone to know that I don't want like every single episode to be like super serious or super, I don't know, like I want to have fun with it too. I don't want it to just be like, we're having this deep conversation. You get what I mean? So anyway, let's pop the poppy. I might have to put the mic down for a second. Do a little ASMR. It's good. I am drinking the watermelon one. I am not sponsored by Poppy. They did send me like 2 12-packs one time, and that was pretty sick, but I am not sponsored. I wish to be. Let's take the first sip. It's always the best. Going into the new year, I have really been wanting to read a lot more. And so I picked up Gino, my husband, had the book, The Alchemist, laying around, but I wanted to pick it up and read it because I don't know, I remember reading it in high school, and I don't really remember like the details of the book, but I remember it being really good, and I've recently heard a lot of different things about The Alchemist. So I was like, that's perfect. Let me read that. I feel like it's kind of reflecting my energy that I have going on right now. So I'm going to read The Alchemist. So I picked it up. I'm about halfway, maybe like 3/4 of the way through, actually. And it's so good. And it kind of has inspired this episode. In the book, they talk about the universal language of the world and how that has to do with following your intuition. And also has to do with like omens and that kind of thing. So there's actually a quote that I want to read. Not a quote. I'm quoting it from the book, but it says, the boy was beginning to understand that intuition is really a sudden immersion of the soul into the universal current of life, where the histories of all people are connected and we are able to know everything because it's all written there. And I just feel like that is so, I don't know, it goes along with the idea if you believe everything happens for a reason and our stories are already written. Maybe this was a bad idea drinking Poppy before because I cannot stop burping. This is like so embarrassing now. So yeah, and I definitely believe that. I feel like there's definitely been things in my life where, you know, if one thing never happened, it would have never led me to this or that. And I feel like it's a way to kind of release yourself of a lot of anxiety and like, oh, like, how's my life going to play out? Like, if you just kind of sink into that and you believe that, it's kind of just like what's meant for me is meant for me, and it's going to happen on whatever timeline it wants to happen on. And it's a really special thing to be able to just like let go of that and be like, you know what, what's meant for me is meant for me, period, point blank. And you can still like manifest and like do, you know, all of your different woo woo things you got going on out there, which I do. But it's just nice to know that whatever is meant for you is going to find you. And all of our journeys are so different. But we all have our own paths for a reason. It's so interesting. Like, your intuition is really a sudden immersion of the soul. Because how else can you explain that? Like, you have this guttural feeling that like makes your body either like tense up and like feel constricted, or you like, I just don't even understand. Like you just have this gut feeling like yes or no, or like this is about to be bad or this is about to be really good. Like, how do we have those just like gut instincts in us? I definitely believe that like we all have a soul, but it's just crazy to be like, okay, well, where does that fit inside of our body physically? You know, like, where's my soul sitting right now? And there's no answer to it. I feel like I'm so drawn to conversations and questions that just don't have an answer. And I think a lot of us are, because as human beings, we are constantly searching for proof or an answer or something that has concrete evidence. And our brains just don't like wondering or not having an answer. So I'm super drawn to those conversations, but I am definitely a believer of souls and soulmates and reincarnation and all of that. And like, even when you're born, like that your kids pick you, is something that I definitely feel like is real too. Like you can kind of like pick your family, or you just have soul families in general. Like, your souls basically are all connected, and in different lifetimes you may be brother or sister in this lifetime, but in the next lifetime you're mother and son or something, you know? So I feel like there's definitely people in my life where I'm like, there is no way in hell that we haven't done life together before. Like my husband, I feel like that with, like, there's just such a deep connection of like, I could never do life without you. And love you, babe. There's just such a deep rooted connection that you're just like, there's no way. Like we have had to have known each other before this life, you know, which is so crazy. Yeah, so crazy. I feel like I am always saying it's like a period. I have to use it like it's a period after a sentence. How do I stop doing that? Somebody please tell me how I stop doing that. I'm gonna the rest of this episode, I'm gonna be very cautious about saying okay? I want to go back to talking about omens because this is something that I've definitely experienced, and I'm sure a lot of people experience them. But basically an omen is an event or an occurrence that is believed to be a sign or a warning of something that will happen in the future. It's kind of like foreshadowing or like a prediction that something's going to happen. And I have had this happen to me a lot, I would say. Like, yeah, I would say I definitely get omens a lot in life, but I remember it very, very strongly when right before I found out that I was pregnant with my son. My husband and I flew. We didn't fly. I literally don't know what I'm saying. I have vacation on the mind because I just booked flights for our vacation coming up in a couple months. But yeah, anyway, we drove down to Florida because we were thinking about possibly wanting to live there and move there. So we were down in Florida, and not knowing at the time, we got pregnant with our son, Sonny, little sunshine state boy. Yeah, so we were down there, and I was getting tons of omens, and just like weird feelings, like that intuition feeling, like I just know something's happening, you know, something's going on. We just got pregnant. So I actually remember writing it down in my notes of like all the weird things that happened. Let me see if I still have it. Florida signs. Here we go. So, yes, before we left for Florida, Gino's mom kept saying, make me a Florida baby, make me a Florida baby. Maybe she was manifesting that. And did you manifest that for me? Number two is like the biggest one, so we're going to save that for last. So I found one of the other ones is I found these my new favorite YouTubers a couple months back, and I started to rewatch their old videos. When we got to Florida, I was so busy, I stopped watching. One day I was making a hemp bracelet and wanted something to listen to. So I went back to see what video I left off on, and it ended up being their gender reveal of our baby video. So of course, wanting to resume like where I left off watching all their old videos, I clicked on it, and it was a boy. And you know, like when you get these omens, you just have like such a weird feeling when it happens. Like you can just tell. You're like, oh, that's weird. You know, you get that feeling where you're just like, does that mean something? So, another one was somehow Peyton and I got on the topic of being late and how she took a test and it was negative, and same with me. Her friend called her a day later and said, I had a dream about you and you were pregnant with a boy. And so she ended up having a girl, but I thought it was weird because I'm like, oh, that's like so weird that, and then Peyton's telling me about it. So I don't know, just thought that was another like weird, like, thing. And that's a weird story in itself. Maybe we'll save the pregnancy story with Peyton. We'll make Peyton come on, and we will have to tell you our story about being pregnant like the same exact time. That's a crazy story. But anyway, another one was, let's see. I woke up one day and was doing research on a couple different types of couches because I wanted a new one. And I was watching a review video on a couch on YouTube. And this girl was saying the best part, you can take off the covers in case you want to wash them. And which is amazing because I have 2 dogs and a baby on the way. And in that moment, I just knew. And I literally wrote, I got my ass out of bed and went to take the test that I had on hand. And the second line was very faint. That was in the morning of February 27th. And then the last one was the biggest one of how we knew that we were probably having a baby. When we were down there, Gino, my husband, he was roaming around Florida and the area that we were in. And he just felt like really called to go see a psychic. So he looked up some random girl up on Google, went to her house. This is also a really cool story that I feel like we should save for another episode. But basically he went and saw this psychic that said, the first thing she said to him was, are you in a relationship? And I hope, basically said to him, I hope you're in a relationship because the person that you are with right now is going to be your baby mama. She said that you're having a baby and it's a boy. I don't know why I'm talking with an accent. I'm on one. This poppy's got me on one. Speaking of that, I'm going to take another sip. So good, you guys. Okay. Yeah, she said that we were definitely having a baby within that year. And Gino had a couple questions that he got to ask at the end, and he asked what the gender was, and she said, it's a boy, for sure. So that was really weird. He came home and told me that, and I was besides myself. It was I took the test right then and there, and I was oh my God, I'm pregnant. Crazy. But yeah, that's a good example, I feel of just having a weird omens keep popping up, having something continuously pop up, and you're just oh, that's weird, this is weird. And then it ends up happening. It's definitely foreshadowing, for sure. It's so interesting when you start tuning into that energy and tuning into your intuition, and really tapping into that. I definitely feel like society just kind of dims that down a little bit, or you're woo woo if you believe in that. I think it's becoming a lot more popular to start tapping into your energy and believing in that recently. And maybe that's just in my world, in my case, of the experiences I've had, that's started becoming more popular to me. But and I would say if you don't experience this, or if you're not super familiar, you're this doesn't really happen to me. I would say maybe try, and you want to start feeling your energy and tuning into that intuition. I would say it really is mind, body, soul. When I feel my intuition is telling me something, it's I hit a wall and I'm ooh, I have to pay attention to it. It's also this feeling you get in your body. Sometimes you'll literally get a restricting feeling, or the opposite, right? If it's something happy, you'll get a feeling of being free or something. And I think just trying to pay attention a little bit more, sit in your body and ask yourself, how am I feeling? Do I feel tense right now? Do I feel really relaxed right now? How does my body feeling about this or the situation I'm in? what is my body trying to tell me? But it's like this gut feeling. And the more you practice like waking up to that and paying attention to that, the more you'll start to be able to catch on to it quicker. When I first started my videography business, I had this gut feeling when I realized like, oh, this can be a career. Like, this is crazy. Like, and I had this feeling like, I know that this is meant for me. And there's no way that I like am not trying this out. Like, if it fails, like whatever, but almost the idea of not trying it and never knowing if it could be a thing was way worse than the idea of trying it and possibly failing. So I think that's a good indication of you knowing if something's right for you. And even with this podcast, like this whole past year of 2024, I wanted to do it so bad. And like, I don't know why. I just didn't want to do it by myself. I wanted to have a couple of my friends do it with me, or have one of my friends do it with me. And I don't know if it's maybe a belief that I had that like it wouldn't be good if it was on my own, or just the fact that I just didn't want to do it alone. Like, it felt scary, it felt uncomfy, and I was just like, rather not. But I kept having this calling of like, you should start a podcast. You should start a podcast. Like, almost like it's meant for me. I just had that feeling. So I eventually just decided to stop overthinking it. Stop overthinking the fact that, is it going to be good by myself or not? Like, who cares? Just do it and find out, you know? And I think it was one of those things where, again, it was like, me doing it and finding out is way cooler than me not doing it and being like, oh, 5 years down the road, like, I really wish I started that podcast 5 years ago. Like, yeah, I'm just not into that. I would rather do something and then pivot if it's not meant to be, than just not try something. And there's little moments in between that, you know, it's not always these big moments in life where you need to trust your intuition for. It's like the small things too. Like, for an example, Gino and I were going to dinner the other night, and we were driving to dinner, and we got to the end of our street, and I was like, I had this restricting, like, weird gut feeling when we were pulling out, like, this restaurant that we planned to go to. I was like, I don't know if like that's the vibe tonight. You know, I was just like, oh, I don't really want to go there. Like, it's not feeling like right. And we pulled up to that restaurant, and I guess maybe like our lights shined in the window, and this one guy was like waving, like maybe it was too bright or whatever. And like, we literally parked, and then I said to Gino, I'm like, yeah, let's just go to the other place. Like, I'm not vibing with this, and we have to go to this other place because I'm just not feeling it. And I just could feel, like, even before that weird thing happened where the guy like waved his hand and was like a little rude through the window or whatever, I felt it when we were pulling out of our road, that it just wasn't going to be for us that night. And so it's just like trusting those little weird moments of like that body feeling that you get. So yeah, big and small moments. I feel like it's fun to lean into that and to trust your intuition with everything. This, I got inspiration from The Diary of a CEO, and I can't remember what conversation this was. I almost feel like it was Mel Robbins, but I can't remember. But it was his podcast. When you're trusting your intuition, sometimes we mistake the feeling of change and the fear that kind of surrounds that, sometimes we mistake that for like our intuition being wrong. And so let's say you have this intuition moment where you're like, oh, like I just know this in my heart. And then you kind of get that fear of like, oh, things are going to have to change. And like, then you start going down this rabbit hole and you're like, well, maybe this is wrong, right? Because I don't want to have to like face the change, and I don't want to have to face the uncomfortableness, and I don't want to have to, X, Y, and Z. You're like, maybe that's just wrong. Maybe my intuition's wrong, And so I think it's like putting aside that fear of working out all the details and like, how is this going to fit into my life? And like, what does my life look like after I make this change or I follow through with this thing? And setting that aside and listening to yourself and listening to what your body's trying to tell you, and knowing that like you're going to be okay, like if your intuition is telling you this is what's right for you, just trust that, and just trust that whatever it's leading you to is meant for you. And so that kind of brings us right back to the beginning, I guess. That was like a weird full circle moment. But yeah, I am going to wrap this up because I feel like I have been chatting for a long time. And I'm really super interested to know if there's any specific topics that you would want to hear me talk about on solo episodes, or even if you have ideas for any episodes, like me talking to somebody else about something, or if you have like any episode suggestions at all. I'm so open to hearing what you have to say. And yeah, again, it has been lovely having a little heart to heart with you, and I cannot wait to have more in the future. And I'm sure as I continue to do more and more of these, oh, the baby is awake. Perfect timing. I'm sure I will get more used to like the filming, the talking into a mic. Like, it's gonna be good. It's gonna be good. It's gonna be good. Okay, guys, I will talk to you guys in the next episode. Thank you so much for tuning in, and I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day.